So this is possibly the most significant area for you to consider as you're designing your program. Again, I apologize if everyone else is seeing the green circle around that. You'll want to consider the type of slots or number of hours your AmeriCorps members are providing or will provide, and then request the appropriate corresponding type of member term from this list. And this list is duplicated in eGrants in the application, so again, you don't have to memorize this. Anticipating a question that many people might have, you can request a combination of various types of slots. So you may, for example, have a program design where you might want to have, say, 2 full-time AmeriCorps members that are putting in 1,700 hours over the course of a service term, yet you might want a dozen AmeriCorps members that are only putting in 450 hours of service because of the particular design of your program. That is entirely permissible and to some degree encouraged so that you maximize the flexibility that is available to you on the various types of terms that are listed here. The one thing to draw your attention to is that when it comes, and I'm going to go back to a different slide because I want to discuss MSY again. As I mentioned, that MSY is member service term. It's the equivalent, member service year, excuse me, is the equivalent of 1 full-time slot. However, only when we get to full-time and half-time can you divide by a logical factor. In other words, 1 MSY is 1 full-time 1,700-hour slot. 1 MSY is 2 half-time or 900-hour member slots. After that, the logic goes away and there is a convoluted multiplying factor for each of the following 3 types of slots so that it doesn't neatly round up. In other words, logic would say if you have a quarter-time slot, you could have 4 of them would equal 1 MSY. Unfortunately, it's not quite that simple, and so 4 quarter-time slots actually equals slightly more than 1 MSY, and there is a chart contained in our RFP that will walk you through the various multiplying factors when developing your budget. So I want to draw your attention to that so that you don't strictly base your application concept on the logic that you would draw from these items. Okay, so there are the various terms of service that AmeriCorps members can conduct, and you will factor that into your program design and ultimately into the design of your budget that you're preparing. When developing your budget, there are 3 primary sections of the budget. Section 1 is your overall program operating costs, and that includes things like personnel expenses, salaries, benefits, staff travel and training, equipment, supplies, and things of that nature. The second major category or section of the budget are all costs related to the AmeriCorps members. So it includes their living allowance that you provide. It includes FICA, which is a requirement. It includes health care, which, by the way, is only required for full-time or 1,700-hour AmeriCorps member slots. Workers' compensation is also included in that section, which is $50 per member, regardless of the type of slot that they have, and other miscellaneous items related to member support. And then the third section of your budget is the administrative or indirect costs, which cannot exceed 5% of the total funds that you're requesting from the corporation. And these are costs that are not directly related to the operation of your program. So those are the 3 major sections of the budget that you will be preparing. Again, let me pause here and say that if you are with an organization and your fiscal person is perhaps not on this call this morning and they desire some more clarification or details about this, please have them contact our office and we'd be glad to walk them through the specifics of the budget and maybe even give some suggestions on how to develop their budget prior to the release of the RFP on January the 11th. We mentioned match earlier, and here's where I want to give some specifics on the requirements related to the match that your organization is required to provide. The minimum overall match for the first 3 years of your program is 24%, and it's 24% of what you're requesting in grant funds. It can be cash, in kind, or a combination of both. There is no requirement for a certain percentage to be in cash or a certain percentage to be in kind. The only requirement is that it is a minimum of 24%, and it's completely at your discretion as to whether that is cash or in kind or a combination. However, you must describe in detail where that match is coming from. In other words, what is the source of the match, and the type. You'll be required in e-grants to select whether it's cash or in kind and provide a narrative about where those funds are coming from or where that in kind is coming from. You'll notice that at the bottom there is a match increase that takes place gradually over the course of your program if you're awarded. As I mentioned at the top, the 24% level lasts for the first 3 years that your program is in existence. Beginning in year 4, your match will gradually go up each year until year 10, where it maxes out at 50% match, again, always being cash in kind or a combination of both. And after year 10, if your program is still operating, then you would stay at the 50% level thereafter. And while I'm on that, the years of operation, I might mention that a AmeriCorps grant is typically a 3-year grant, guaranteed for the first year, and then offered by way of a renewal or continuation application for the subsequent 2 years based on adequate performance of your program. So 1 year of operations, then you submit a proposal or an application for renewal for years 2 and 3, and then after the 3rd year, you would have to then submit a full-blown proposal once again as if you were a new organization coming in off the street. And you'll notice at the very bottom that's the citation from the Code of Federal Regulations that discuss the match requirements for AmeriCorps. I'd recommend this, particularly if you're having trouble sleeping at night. It is great bedtime reading. Some of the requirements related to reporting that I just want to discuss briefly is that on a monthly basis, programs are required to submit a program report which details the activities of your AmeriCorps members and the things that they are doing through your program. On a monthly basis, you're also required to submit a fiscal report, which is the vehicle by which you are reimbursed for your expenses. So an AmeriCorps grant is a cost reimbursable grant, which means you do not receive any lump sum in advance. You expend funds, submit a fiscal report, otherwise known as a PER, Periodic Expense Report, on a monthly basis, and then that triggers the reimbursement process through our agency. In addition to those reports, programs are required to submit a quarterly performance measures report. So as part of your proposal, you will submit to us performance measures that we review and approve, and then on a quarterly basis, you'll report on your progress towards meeting those performance measures. Also on a quarterly basis, you'll submit a quarterly fiscal report, an FFR, which stands for Federal Financial Report, and that is a combined report that includes the data from the 3 fiscal reports, PERs, that are submitted the 3 months of that respective quarter. So there's a little overview of the reporting requirements. Again, you can probably see that's why we're encouraging that a fiscal person have significant responsibilities for reporting on a fiscal level, both monthly and quarterly within your program design.